Hello. Do you know that every time I do one of these lives, my computer makes my camera face to the rear? Makes it face to the rear. So one day I'm going to do a live for you, and it won't be me. It'll be a picture of the wall behind me. So you can wait for that hilarious moment at some point in the future. But I think I've got it the right way around today. So I wanted to talk to you about hygge. As you all know, one of the events that we've got scheduled for this month is called hygge, which is we're doing some storytelling and getting together, and it's very hygge. But you might be wondering what hygge is. So I had a look at the feedback, and thank you to Suzanne who fed back on the proposed book club books that we were going to do. And she pointed out that she doesn't have any of the books, and I sort of thought to myself, well, when I look at my chest of Northern tradition books that I've collated over the years, and I've sort of pursued them and hunted them down, it's taken me a long time to get them. A lot of them are out of print. A lot of them are very big. They're quite weighty texts. And in terms of what I want for you and for the hearth space, I don't want it to be hard work. That's not the point. So I had a little think about this, and I thought, well, why don't we choose a topic? Why don't we choose an inspiration? And looking at the 3 topics that I'd suggested, I've decided that hygge will be the one to go with. So this is going to be inspired by Mike Viking. I don't know if it's Viking or Viking, I don't know. His book called The Little Book of Hygge, which was published in 2016, and it was really big at the time. It was all in all of the major bookshops, and it was looking at the Danish art of hygge, which a lot of Danes think that this is very specific. It's very culturally specific to Denmark. Now there are other terms that you can find in other countries that are similar. So hominess, which I quite like, coziness comes in as well. Kozelig. And in the German, I'm going to have to look at this to do it, Gemütlichkeit, which I hope I pronounced right. I did ask somebody before this who's German if I was pronouncing it right, so I apologise if I wasn't. It's quite a complex term. When you think about coziness, for example, when people say cozy, anyone who knows what hygge says, no, that's not enough, it's not good enough, it's not deep enough, it's not strong enough. So you have to explore hygge in order to understand what it's all about. But some of the ways that people describe hygge are the art of creating intimacy, which I quite like, or a hug without touching, which I also very much like, and cocoa by candlelight. I think that's the one that Mike Viking says is his favourite term. But I was thinking about this in terms of a hug without touching, and this is the reason why I chose this topic for this month, because in the northern countries, every year, it starts to get darker at this point, and this is for me one of the reasons why perhaps within the northern countries you do get a lot of these terms which relate to a specific means or feel or way of achieving that sense of safety and comfort and coziness and warmth that we need and that we crave in the winter months. But I'm also really aware that obviously with social distancing in place, a lot of us are not getting our quotient of required hugs. And certainly here in the UK, we're just about to go into another phase of lockdown, so we'll be even more distant from each other and even more confined to our own homes. And I know that that's the case elsewhere in the world as well, so I felt that this is a really important topic for us to look at. So you might ask, how does this relate to the runes or to the northern tradition, for example? So I wanted to give you a little bit of background here. So the term hygge itself, as it's used today, was very much around in the 18th century in Denmark. That's when it's really started to sort of ramp up and become an important sort of cultural thing within Denmark. And it came from the word hygge, which originally meant hug, a hug. So it makes a lot of sense. But it does have a lot more to it than that. It relates to an older term in Old Norse, which referred to well-being. So not just to, sort of a physical hug, but to the idea of well-being. And it was also related to terms to mean to give courage, to give comfort, and to give joy. So again, a lot more in here that we're trying to bring in. And all of these flow back to a Proto-Germanic word, hygge, which meant all of those things, but it also meant to think. And that word was the parent word, not just for hygge, but also for the name of Odin's raven, hygge. Thought was his name. So all of these words flow back into the ancient past, into this idea of consciousness somehow, of having a space to be with the ones we love, to experience, what it is to be human, to come together. Maybe an idea of storytelling, of thought, of sharing experiences, of spaciousness, of having time, which is often we're very time poor, in the modern world. Despite having all of these, wonderful devices that help us with our lives, we're expected to be very productive a lot of the time. And within the winter months, we don't always have that time to decompress and slow down. So if you think about things like the run up to Christmas can be very frantic, and we spend a lot of time with people, and often not enough time to actually speak to them in any really deep, meaningful way, because they're going, hello, 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 sort of party, frantic, shopping, buying, all of that sort of stuff. So hygge presents us with an alternative, thing to look for within the winter months. That intimacy and that time to spend, not with purpose, almost like without purpose in that sense, a bit of time to meander, the way that our thoughts meander. We're not like, right, I must be productive and I must achieve and I must do this and I must do that. But actually just thinking about it in terms of, sometimes it's nice to just sit, and enjoy yourself. And hygge is all about, delighting the senses, soothing the senses as well. It's not about jarring, frantic, overwhelming experience. It's about experience that we can expand into and that we feel safe in, that we feel joyful in, and that we delight in. And it's bringing intimacy. So small gatherings of 1 or 2, 3, 4 individuals. If you think about a hearth, fire, think about the number of people that you can actually fit around an old, ancient, traditional hearth fire. You're not going to have many more than that within a genuine hygge space, for example. And it brings safety, that sense of safety. And we need that, in these times we're feeling a lot of uncertainty. We're looking for a sense of safety and connection and peacefulness. So this is why I'm bringing hygge to you at this point. And you're going to find, I'm going to be bringing some more lives like this, talking to you about the themes, talking about the ways in which we can bring hygge into our lives. And I'll post some things, some thinking points for you to think about, so that we can then talk about hygge and how can we bring its power and its practices into our lives. So at this point, I just want to invite you to think about everything that I've just said. What are the moments for you in your life right now that might bring you a hygge feeling? From what I've said about what hygge is, how often do you get to have those moments? And if you were to plan to have a few more of those moments, over the coming weeks, what might they be, and when might you do them? Now, I'd love to hear from you. Do post, if you've inspired any thoughts for you today. Think, I'd love to do some baking, or I just want to light a candle and read a book, or I want to go on an autumn walk and just drink in the leaves on the trees. Anything like that. Those are good fun things to be thinking about. What might hygge look like to you? What delights your senses? What makes you feel safe, but very much alive and very much connected to the world around you? So I'm looking forward to working with you on hygge and having all of our senses delighted.